by Helena Fox and York Normandy veterans. Part 2 of 3. Operation Overlord continues.
Report, D-Day +2, Normandy, 0800 hours, Royal Army Service Corps, 11th Armoured Division, heading inland. Private George Meredith, nickname Merry, loading supplies onto a truck. Over.
When they transferred me to the Royal Army Service Corps, I hadn't drove them before, but I passed first time. Gobble has a go at me, he does, because I says I've never drove him before. "You're a liar," he says. "You've drove before." I says I haven't. And I hadn't drove nothing before. But it just seemed to come natural. You see, I'm a driver now. We was all in the Rifle Brigade. All together, me, Bill and Stuart doing our 6-week training. And then Monty's taken over the training and he wants it more mobile. So he breaks the battalion up. And Bill goes in the Tanks Corps, but Stuart stops in the Rifle Brigade. He manages to stop in there. I don't know why he stopped in there, and they shoved me into the Royal Army Service Corps, where, like I say, I become a driver. We didn't like it much, being broken up, me, Bill and Stuart, you know, but there wasn't much we could do about it. Can't fight all the army. So we just get out. And then I never see him no more after that. Never see him again. Over here, I just do what the sergeant tell me. I take the supplies to a destination, and what they do with it, I don't bother about. I don't transport petrol no more now that they set a pipe up under the channel. There was 3 of us that come over with petrol on D-Day +1, yeah? We's loading trucks on D-Day, this is, and putting them in the hold down in King Edward Docks in London, ready to go to France. And we don't know. We're doing exercises and training and that, but now we don't know whether we're still doing exercises or whether we're in the wall, like, you know. Till they put us on this boat. They put me on this boat, and it's now I realise something's happening. First time ever I've been out of this country, D-Day. Only ferry I've ever been on is on the Thames, a penny bus ride from where we live. But if the old sergeant says, "You do that, you cross the channel," whether you want to or not, like, you do it, no arguments. And when they lift me truck up, I'm not in it, they lift it up to lower it into the hold, and then the captain of the boat, he comes out and he says, "I don't want that on here," he says. "That's got a pepper leg, I can smell it." So off. He won't put us on. Well, I've got 1,000 gallon of petrol in the back in jerry cans. That's why I can smell it. I'm thinking, now what am I going to do? I've got to get over to France. And fortunately, the Canadians are there. And they have an odd boat that isn't full up. So they take me. And so we go in a landing crafts because no one else will have us. We catch the tide, right, because we's well up. And they drop you. Drop the front and off we go. And I'm driving onto Juno Beach. It's still a dangerous situation, even on day 2. There's still some mines on the beach, and I'll go with a bang if I go up, with 1,000 gallon of petrol on the back. The red caps are there, and they're directing. You just keep your foot down and get out of the bloody way. Get off the bloody beach!
Report, D-Day, 1000 hours. Location on board ship. Operation Overlord is in full swing. 2nd Division, East Yorkshire Regiment, approaching Sword Beach. Infantryman Private Albert Barrett, nickname Bert, preparing to land. Over.
This is it. This is what we trained for, back home, along the Murray Firth. Landing a number of times, the ramp coming down, you jump in the water and hold your rifle up. In the camp, we've even taken quite a space to mark out the beach and the roads up from the beach, so we'll know where we're going. And now, This is it. D-Day. When, suddenly, they're keeping a number of us back. Keeping us back as immediate reinforcements. LOB, left out of battle. I'm thinking, we trained for this and now it's not going to happen. But I'm in God's hands. It may be a disappointment to me, but it's not my will. It's God's will. So that's how it is. That's helped me in a lot of situations. Yeah. So that's how it is. The battalion land at H hour 7:30 a.m. in the first wave and should have fought their way forward, clearing the beach of enemy. And now, 10:30 a.m, we're approaching Sword Beach as immediate reinforcements. There's noise everywhere. All around us. Noise coming from our boats, noise from above because the Navy are out here firing guns over us. Noise. The noise. And we're landing in the same place on the right-hand side, but not in the same way as the others. 'Cause as immediate reinforcements, we're on a big ship and we can walk down the side and jump into the water holding up our rifles and wade to shore. Wading to shore. Just like on the Thames, in Bermondsey, where we played as children. You don't call it a beach. On a river it's a shore. As kids we used to play along the shore and get our boots muddy, and then go home to face mother. Oh dear. And now we're wading ashore. And in one way, I'm pleased I'm not in the first wave. We're seeing some of the wounded. Some of the people we know wounded. Our padre, he's been wounded. He's sitting up against the wall on the floor with a damaged arm. We want to get off quick, so we're walking off the beach, but the trouble is, we're walking all day because we don't meet up with the first wave. It was a very noisy day. And we're seeing, people, bodies and of course animals on farms. Dead animals. So it takes all day and we don't meet up until 9:30 at night. And it's only now we start to dig ourselves in.
Report. D-Day plus 20. 1600 hours. Location. Undisclosed field in Normandy. Private George Meredith, nicknamed Merry, of the Royal Army Service Corps, 11th Armoured Division, unloading his truck. Over.
My favourite groceries are beans. Tins of baked beans. Well, with me carting rations, there's often the odd tin that falls out like, They fall out and roll, what's the name? Under the seat. It's only a little space, but it's big enough to get about 3 tins in. Yeah, you can always find a tin of beans. Beans on toast sometimes when the bread comes in. We don't get much bread, it's all biscuits because bread don't keep. As long as I get a case of beans, and half of that goes in their locker where I keep the tools. 2 spanners and a screwdriver. I'm happy. You ain't got the faintest idea where you're going. Red caps keep you on the road. They won't let you turn off. Red caps are the army, the army police. And they're at any road so you can't turn off. So you just go through as far as they'll tell you. And then you go see the Sergeant Major and say, "Where you want these? Tuck 'em down there." He'll say, "Oh, thank you very much. Where's me help then?" "You'll get some bloody help, all right."
Report. D-Day plus 22. 0300 hours. Location, north of Caen. 2nd Division, East Yorkshire Regiment. Infantryman Private Albert Barrett, nicknamed Bert, dug in. I repeat, Private Bert Barrett, dug in. Over.
So the ideal trench is there's two of you, and you dig down, and you've got two walls, and you leave enough for a step, and then you sit on that. And then, when there's a bombardment going, you watch each other. And if you're a smoker, I stick a pencil in my mouth. I sometimes hold a pencil, and the fact you're holding something seems to be a bit of relief. But in the morning, when there's dew on the ground, the sergeant come round, puts 5 cigs for you into the mud or grass. Come round every morning, 5 cigs. You see cigarettes before food sometimes. For a couple of days we're in this trench that the Germans have built. It's one of their defence trenches. And we find this farming implement, and it makes a sort of shelf across the trench. But also, there's a couple of German greycoats. It's summertime, so we aren't that cold, but we put the coats on top of this shelf, so we have a bit of warmth in that direction. And now, we're going into action. God willing. We're getting ready to move off to attack the Chateau de Lalande, which the Germans have taken possession of. And, we're all prepared while our little kit bags are put in the pile. They're going to be carried on the truck and given to us later. We're just going to go with our armour. We're waiting to move off. Just waiting for the... whatever it is, a whistle or something. And then the Germans mortar us. And so you just dive into a trench, the nearest one, and as I'm falling, I feel a kick in my wrist. I fall in on 2 men. My friend Mitch is one of them. And there's blood coming down me, coming down on my... And they don't know what's happening. They can see blood coming down, but they don't know where it's coming from. I say, "Look, there's a bit of bandage in my pocket." And I give it to them. They say, "You go back to the first aid post," which is down the road somewhere. So I'm going back to the first aid post, and I'm being given a drug. I'm put on a drug and being taken to the beach. And we're sleeping on the beach all night in a tented hospital. With sheets and everything. And this is only 2 weeks after landing, when we're getting ready to go into action. And I'm lying here in a tented hospital while my comrades are getting to attack the chateau. I'm missing out on the action again. It's going to be a tough fight, but it's vital if we can get in, capture it. I've 2 pieces of shrapnel in the wrist, so I can't even fire a rifle. And the next thing, I'm on a boat back home and coming into England. We're getting off the boat and there's a big welcome. In some cases it's people in the course of their work, but in other cases they appear to know the injured are coming back from France and they're there to greet you. I say to a station master, somewhere near Guildford, I'll give him a paper with a telephone number on and say, "Can you call that number and tell him Bert's wounded?"
Report. Undisclosed location. 1600 hours. Royal Army Service Corps, 11th Armoured Division. Private George Meredith. Nickname Merry. Delivering supplies to the front line. Over.
You have to unload the truck and stack the rations in the field for them, and then the guys come and pick it up. Because the rations is all in boxes, in wooden boxes like that. And there's enough for 12 men. Each box contains enough for 12 men. Sometimes they like to brag a bit about what action they're seeing out here. The men do. I let them go on for half an hour, then I remind them they'd be doing bugger all if they hadn't got the ammunition or the rations. Without me and me lorry, they wouldn't get to do nothing. I get to see plenty of France and Belgium. They just give us 2 or 3 days, what they term a rest like, 'cause we've been moved up and up and up. One of the singers come. Was it Gracie Fields? And we have a concert. One of the top what's her names, and I'm seeing her. We take her own chair with us to the concert lot so we can sit down. I mean, she's got a good reception lot. We just have a few days off, what they call a rest bite. We go to Denmark, we go Friday, Saturday, Sunday, come back Monday. We just have a few days off, you know, to let ourselves go. Spend a weekend drinking and making love. Drinking and making love. That is, you know, till they move you back up again.
Report. This is D-Day plus 34. Location, approaching Con. 5th Division, Duke of Cornwall's Light Infantry, Private Ken Smith, Smudger, dug in. I repeat, Smudger, dug in. Over.
We live in a slit trench. Every time you stop, you start to dig in. So everybody carries a pick or a shovel as well as an entrenching tool, and you dig slit trenches. 4 foot long, 4 foot deep, 2 foot wide. 2 people in there. You might start to dig, then move on maybe 3 or 4 times a day. But one of you stands to, and one of you just gets down and tries to get some sleep. So you do everything in there, including toileting. You use anything you have in the slit trench and throw it out, because you daren't leave, because there's snipers out there. In 5 months, I never sleep under cover. I never get to sit on a toilet and never sit down for a meal. You never make friends, because whoever you might be sharing a trench with, you might be talking to one minute. He's dead the next. It's a constant. You never even get to know their names. And after a few weeks, you see people holding one hand up when it's heavy shelling, hoping to get shell splinters, to keep them away from the front. What people don't realise is that D-Day isn't the be-all and end-all of it's far worse after. The beach is just a matter of getting off the boat and getting a little inland. The battle starts when you get into the countryside. I mean, in an offensive, you're probably getting 500,000 shells, mortars, and the worst are airbursts. July 10th. We're near Con, at Hill 112. It's a high point, the hill. It's a high point. Whoever holds that, the Germans won't let it go because they command the whole of Normandy right down to Caen, and we're going up with 300 odd. 328 fighting men. You've got machine guns either side. The Germans have let us get halfway across, then they... This is far worse than D-Day. Going uphill, and a shell hits a tree, it splinters it, and you've got a huge sharp splinter coming down. See, this is the sort of violent deaths you're getting. There's 70-ton Tiger tanks and Panthers firing at us, and all you've got is a Sten gun or a rifle. I mean, even our anti-tank guns just bounce off. The shells are just bouncing off, they can't knock them out. This is something I shouldn't be telling you. We run back. Their 88mm guns go through our tanks and into another one. Straight through. We're having to bury these dead within these tanks. Their bodies have melted into... When you think 4 or 5 men in a tank, all together in a restricted area with the guns and ammunition, and a German 88 shell coming right through. I mean, I have to literally scrape the remains of a burial party. because the heat of a tank that's been in flames, the body is melted onto the... It's a dreadful job to be doing. Sometimes, as an infantryman, you think it'd be great to have cover from inside a tank. But one hit, and it's very few people who ever get out of them. No. It's like a steel prison. A steel tomb. In fact, the Germans call them Tommy cookers. Our unit on 112. 328 fighting men. And after 19 hours, only 60 of us come down. Only 60. We lose all those men.
Report. D-Day plus 24. Location, England. 2nd Battalion, Coldstream Guards. Guardsman Dennis Haydock. Nickname Hank. Awaiting orders. Over.
You can always tell a guardsman, wherever he may be,
In London.
or in Aberdeen,
or Birchington-on-Sea.
the way he squares his shoulders,
The way he wears his cap.
the way he sits a pretty girl
Upon his massive lap.
When I'm called up, I get instructions to present myself at the General Service Corps at Caterham. My pal, Alan Clark, who knows about these things, says that that's the Guards Depot, the Coldstream Guards. You know, can't possibly be the Guards, because I'm a weakling, 5'10", and only weigh about 8 stone. At school, the welfare report says I'm malnourished. Well, my mother and father, what with being deaf and dumb, they can't get much of a job, so I'm very, very thin. I'm a bit immature, a bit shy, reserved, and, I don't get on at school, because I don't really think I'm much good. And the teacher always seems very anxious to use her cane on me wherever possible. So the last thing I expect is to be selected for the Coldstream Guards. It's 12 weeks of very tough discipline. Everything's done at the double, but now I'm feeling really fit. Fitter than I've ever been, and full of confidence. And I weigh 10.5 stone. And I'm commended for my shooting. The weapons instructor writes in my small arms handbook, "A good man and a good shot needs no coaching." Up to this stage, we've been referred to as recruits, but now we can call ourselves guardsmen. We parade and march with full kit down to Caterham Station for Waterloo. At the armoured training wing at Pirbright, we take over our first Sherman tanks. There's 5 of us in a tank. 5, that's right. A driver, a co-driver, a gunner, that's me, a co-gunner, and a tank commander. The first tank I drive is a Covenanter. I get to the top of the hill, but the tank careers backwards down the hill for about 50 yards and hits a tree. We're all shaken, including the instructor. Then, driving a Crusader for the first time on the roads, we have a sharp corner to turn, and the instructor tells me to rev up and pull sharply on the left tiller. But the tank goes straight across the road and demolishes a brick letterbox. After a few weeks of beautiful sunshine, we move our tanks to Duncombe Park, Helmsley, and spend the first of the summer here. We don't know then how similar this area is to the Bocage country in France. And now, today, the 30th of June, we're moving off to Gosport with our tanks, ready to cross the channel. People are lining the route and cheering and arm waving. And sitting here on the boat, I'm trying to take in the spectacle of hundreds of boats and ships of all sizes. Darkness comes, and we begin to move off to Normandy. Our first stop is going to be Tilly Sissu. There's hardly a wall standing. The whole town has been completely devastated. A terrible sight. German defence trenches, and inside, enormous numbers of dead German soldiers, all bloated and blue with the heat, and bloody holes in their chests and faces. Of those whose faces are visible, you can see expressions of fear and pain. The smell coming from the trenches and from the cows and horses which have been killed is absolutely horrible. It's an unmistakable smell. The smell of death.
Report. D-Day plus 88. Location Belgian border. Royal Army Service Corps, 11th Armoured Division. Private George Meredith, nickname Merry, entering Antwerp with supplies. Over.
I'm the third man. The third man into Antwerp after what they called a supply famine. The British troops had started to suffer from supply problems because they're pushing on up toward Germany faster than they had planned. And the only way supply famine can end is if the British liberate the port of Antwerp. And now here I am, the third man in. There's a driver first, then captain, then it's me. So I'm the third man in there, and I'm having a job to go down the ruddy streets because they've been under German rule here. And they're out in the streets, clapping and that, and it's, well, I'm having a job to get through, like, as if I speed up, I'll have somebody run over, like, you know. The lads are especially pleased when you turn up because you got food on. I mean, when you got all the rations on, they're always pleased to see you. Rations and cigarettes. Cigarettes are more important than food, actually. You can always do with a cigarette. When we was kids, like, my brother John was a choir boy back home at Stratford. Now, they used to sell 2 Crown cigarettes and 2 matches in a box when we was little. We'd go buy a packet, and then we'd go up and sit up in the rafters, because nobody could smell you when you're up in the... what's the name? It's perfect. Never think about how hard a bloody thing is. It's only about 60, 80 foot high. But no. Never think about how hard a bloody thing is. Just sit up there, having a smoke.
Report. D-Day plus 30. Undisclosed locations. Green Harrods infantryman, Private Ken Cooke, nickname Cookie, and Private Ken Smith, nickname Smudger, of the Duke of Cornwall's Light Infantry, deep in the French countryside. Repeat, Smudger and Cookie, deep countryside. Over.
We're to find out how many Germans are in the village, where they are, and what tactics we have to use to clear them out. Whether we go around from different angles to clear them out, and if there's any. If they don't want to be cleared out, we have to fight them and, do it that way. I don't have time to be afraid. Just
What's going on here? Keep going! Keep going!
Orders from.
A sniper up there! Stop here. Right. We've cleared him all the way. Carry on.
And that's how we advance. One after the other.
There's plenty of food in Normandy. They aren't starving like in Paris. And by and large, the Germans have been behaving themselves here. But I mean, there's been some atrocities. Massacres in villages. Perhaps in retaliation for a German officer that's been killed. And you come across villagers, locked into village halls and set on fire, you know. Burnt alive. You go to a farm, and there's the farmer, his wife, and his children spread-eagled across the courtyard. Some of the times they've been killed by retreating Germans, or they've been caught in the crossfire. The battles you see are mainly farm to farm. And we're advancing through this village, and we see a furtive head pop up. The civilians are here in the cellars. They've not just evacuated, they're still here. And there's 2 German Tiger tanks in the square being rearmed from an ammunition truck, and the commander's ordering us to fire everything we have at this. But hang on, the French civilians are still here, amidst the battle. We're being commanded to open fire, but they're civilians. Only a few shots ring out, and we're being threatened with a court-martial. Severe punishment, because we've held our fire. He's given us a final warning, and we have to open fire. We have to. The first 2-inch mortar blows the ammunition truck up, nothing left of it. 1 tank ablaze, getting out of the way as quick as you can. But these French people, they can't get out of the way. They're still in the cellars of their houses, and their houses are being obliterated. I think some of us might miss aim, but you can't afford. If the enemy infiltrates into your lines, well, sometimes you have to call down your own artillery to keep it secure. This is why the Battle of Normandy is so important. Apart from liberating these villages, there's the people back home. If we fail, that'll be it. We'll be under German rule. I mean, who can come to rescue us from the Nazis? There's no one left in Europe that can do it. Europe's conquered.
Report, 2300 hours, undisclosed location. 11th Armoured Division, Royal Army Service Corps. Private George Meredith, nicknamed Merry, delivering medical supplies. Repeat, Merry, delivering urgent medical supplies. Over.
I ain't looking for danger. You do as the sergeant tell you, and you try not to think about how the road ahead might be booby-trapped, or if there's a panther waiting round the corner like. And tonight, yeah, I'm out on a run around out of petrol. I'm out of petrol and this German pops out of this hedge and he's got a revolver in his hand, and I say to him, Red Cross! Red Cross! Like, you know, I don't have nothing like. And I'm trying to make him understand, Red Cross! And off he goes. Thank God. So I'm going back to headquarters, and I'm coming down this back road and I see something in the, in the shadow ahead. And I get to the corner. It's a Tiger tank, nearly pooped myself. Shoot round the corner and open her up. I mean, when you come down the road and you see that sticking out, see that gun turret sticking out, you get out of there.
Infantry Record Office, July 1944. Sir, Madam, I regret to have to inform you that a report has been received War Office to the effect that number 14693549, Private Cook Kenneth Basil, 7th Green Howards, is dangerously ill at 79 General Hospital, suffering from bomb wounds, back and left leg. At the same time, to express the sympathy and regret of the Army Council, any further information as his condition has progressed will be notified to you. I am, madam, your obedient servant, the officer in charge of records. Over.
July 14th. Been here just over a month. I'm on patrol in an hedgerow. This shell comes over, hits a tree and splatters all of us who are down below, about 15, 16 of us. Now, I don't know how many of us are killed or wounded, but I'm wounded myself. Shrapnel all in me back and leg, and 2 more chaps come and pick me up and take me back to the first aid station. And the next thing I know is this circle of lights. From then on, all there is this circle of light, which tells me I'm on the operating table. I wake up, lying on my stomach in this field hospital, with a nurse sticking needles in me bum. Quite a wake-up call, I can tell you. They're coming every hour with these needles, and I'm getting fed up. I get to a stage, tears are rolling, I say, no, not again. And I'm lying there, in this big marquee that's the field hospital, with all beds and nurses and doctors running about. And the opening of the marquee at the far end, like 2 flaps, is open. And these 2 Germans are walking across the opening. I shout to the nurse, "Where's me rifle?" She says, "What for?" "There's 2 Germans out there." They're 2 medical staff of the Germans who are helping us, helping our staff. Prisoners of war. And there's me, wanting to pump 'em up.
Report, August 10th, 1944. D-Day plus 65. France. 2nd Battalion Coldstream Guards, on the move again. Guardsman Dennis Haydock, nickname Hank, on tea duty, south of Caen. Over.
How to make a cup of tea whilst on the move. Take 1 petrol tin, a square one, not a jerry can, and cut it in 2. Fill 1/2 with earth, and onto that pour a bit of petrol. Then get a match and set it alight. Then on top of this goes the other half, which you need to fill with water. Bring to the boil and add tea. Or rather, compo. When we're on the move, we get the tins out whenever we stop and make a cup of tea. Well, it's not normal tea. It's horrible stuff. It's called compo because it's a composition of tea, sugar and milk powder. Ugh, horrible. But better than nothing. There's this one time we're near a battery of 5.5 howitzers south of Caen, which, by the way, has been really badly damaged. And we're just finishing up a cup of compo when out of nowhere this shell comes over and explodes right near our makeshift toilet, on which one of our men just happens to be sitting. And as we're running for cover, we see him jump up, and he's dashing across to his tank with his trousers round his ankles, trying to restore them to their normal position as explosions are still going off behind him. We're going into action again, and to tell you the truth, I'm not looking forward to it. It's August 10th, and our troop is up the hill in an orchard, supporting a battalion of Irish Guards who are trying to take the road between Vire and Vassy. A very strategic road. We're moving off down the hill, in full view of the enemy. Several tanks have already been knocked out, Shell and mortar fire everywhere, and I'm firing at spots of light on the opposite hillside. The empty shell cases are clattering down on the steel floor of the turret. The noise of gunfire and voices on the radio and intercom through our headphones. It's bedlam. We've never seen on exercise what gunfire looks like when it's directed at us. Suddenly, the tank shudders. But it's okay, and we're carrying on. It shudders again. Suddenly, the shell pierces the gun-mounting shield, and pieces of the inside of the tank armour break away and are flying around the tank, piercing my arm and face, and even smaller pieces pepper my chest. We've got to get out. But it's hurting so much, and I'm looking down, and it looks like my arm is lying on the floor of the turret. We're getting out as fast as we can and congregating at the rear of the tank. My arm's bleeding profusely, but we have to start running for cover. Across to a hedge, and we follow the line of it. There's shell and mortar fire all around us, and we're passing Irish guardsmen in slit trenches. Poor devils. But we have to keep going. Me in the lead. 2 German soldiers behind a machine gun, hidden in the hedge, sir. The officer's going forward. And it's all right. He's signalling for us to come forward. The soldiers are dead. And we're carrying on. And we're following the hedge left out of sight of the enemy, and it's only now we stop. And they're dressing my bleeding wound. I'm reaching in my left breast pocket next to my heart to find my cigarettes, and the case has 2 holes through it. And my army prayer book. And I'm looking at them. Looking at the 2 holes, at my bleeding arm, and at my heart, thinking, these have just saved my life. And the next thing, I'm being taken to the field hospital, and they're wheeling me into theatre, removing splinters from my arm, but they can't get all of them. And they're saying I have to go back to England. More surgery here will probably damage the muscle of my arm. And a nurse is leaning over me, removing the peppered pieces from my chest and face.
Wish me luck as you wave me goodbye.
And I'm on my way home. And I can see the faces of crowds of people cheering as we are arriving back home, and a huge banner waving in the wind. Welcome to our heroes of Normandy.
In Part 2 of Bomb Happy by Helena Fox and the York Normandy veterans, Mary was portrayed by Carl Wiley, Bert by Thomas Lillywhite, Smudger by Joe Sample, Cookie by Danny Mellor, Hank by Jack Chamberlain, and the Signaller by Joe Rivis. The soundtrack was composed by Sam McAvoy, with vocals by Natasha Jones on Wish Me Luck, and Esme Schofield with 1812 Youth Theatre on I Vow to Thee My Country. Tom Robson sang The Grand Old Duke of York. The sound designer was Ben Pugh, the presenter Cal Stockbridge, associate producer Jack Chamberlain, and the director was Helena Fox. This was an Everwitch Theatre audio production, made during lockdown to commemorate the 75th anniversary of victory in Europe, and supported through public funding by the National Lottery through Arts Council England. When you are ready, please listen to Part 3.